Boston Bruins trade reports are continuing to heat up as a recent article has dropped a bombshell trade between the Boston Bruins and Montreal Canadiens with a very familiar name who's been in multiple trade reports. And we're going to be breaking it down, going over this trade, as well as multiple other teams that have linked Pavel Zacha to multiple big trades here across the NHL. And we know the Bruins are looking for a top 6 center, so we're going to be breaking it all down here, going over every possibility that's been provided to us today. Before we do jump into it, though, here, ladies and gentlemen, be sure to hit the sub button if you haven't already. You know we're on the road to 8K, and we're a quarter of the way there from 7, with the big goal of 10K. Your support has been absolutely incredible as of late, and I appreciate all of you guys watching these videos right now. And if you're looking for a spot for your Bruins news, we're going to have it all here for you throughout this entire offseason, and it seems like it's picking up a lot right now, and you won't want to miss it. I'm going to have it all here for you guys first. But without any further ado, let's get straight into this trade. And looking at it from the surface, this looks like a very good deal from the Boston Bruins. And taking a look, the Canadiens acquire Pavel Zacha, while the Bruins acquire Kirby, Dach, Joshua, and a 2026 second-round pick. Now, on the surface, this looks like an absolute steal for the Boston Bruins. You know, you get rid of a guy in Pavel Zacha, who is a big part of your top 6, plays center, plays the wing, played quite a bit of first line last year as well, actually. And now coming out of it, there's so many reports of him being dealt by this Bruins team from before the draft, from free agency to now in a couple of weeks, when we've seen multiple reports come out from some agents saying that the NHL trade market is going to be heating up over this next week. And Pavel Zacha seems to be one of the biggest names here on the list in this case, with Kirby, Dach being also on there from the Montreal Canadiens side of things. And a deal with Montreal Canadiens and the Boston Bruins don't always happen. But when we take a look at this one, this seems like a very big win, on the surface at least, from the Boston Bruins. I'm going to dive into it a little bit and going over why this may not be the best trade, although it could be one that the Bruins would like to indulge in. Now, taking a look at the forward group here, of course, we have Pavel Zacha sitting right now at the number 2C. Has played line 1 last year, can play the wing as well. Very interesting on his front, where he is a top 6 forward. We know the Bruins are trying to get one more top 6 forward. Now, if you do trade Pavel Zacha, you're out of another player. And that's where a lot of concerns being raised, at least in my opinion, from this. And, you know, the forward core on this team right now is not bad whatsoever. It lacks a bit of experience. It lacks the top-line talent, I guess we could say, apart from a guy like Morgan Geekie, David Pastrnak. You know, a few others there. I still wouldn't consider Lindholm right now just there yet. Zacha's around that, hovering there. And Casey Middlestat has that potential. But apart from that, we don't see these, bona fide goal scorers here on this lineup. And that's what they want to add. But getting rid of Pavel Zacha may be a hand that they need to play to be able to make this happen. Now, Kirby Dach is a player that is very interesting. He's been a player that was supposed to be a top 6 first-line talent for the Chicago Blackhawks before getting traded to the Montreal Canadiens, and has just not been able to stay healthy with the Montreal Canadiens whatsoever. You look at his few games here that he played with them, and I literally mean few. 58 games played in his first season, 2 the year after, and this season, 57 games played. He really has not been able to stay healthy, but 38 points being his career high, and showing that in 22-23, it looked like there was some promise there, but has not been able to keep that production up since, with the injuries that he's been able to have, and the little bit of a lackluster year of this year. It seems like the Canadiens are almost all out on Kirby Dach. And I would like to know, any Canadiens fans watching this video, let me know what you think about Kirby Dach. I'm very curious to see what the what the Habs side of thing is, whether they want him traded or not, because, the rivalry right now has been pretty tame. Let's not forget that, but it's still there, no doubt. And I think that Kirby Dach brings a force that the Bruins need. A guy that, if can stay healthy at 6'4", 221, is what the Bruins are looking for on the center. Of course, Tanner Jeannot was added to have that physicality, but Kirby Dach, a big player who doesn't mind throwing the body, of course. He's a bit of a band-aid, but when he's healthy, he's very, very good at that. Uses every bit of his playing ability to be able to generate offense, generate, whatever he needs to, I guess, on whatever's asked from him. He's a guy that, with serious interest, the Bruins could really make work, especially being only 24 years old still, having already, since 2019, 2020, 6 years nearly in the NHL already, and only 24 years old. This is a guy that Marco Sturm would love to get his hands on, love to be able to try and develop into the player that we all thought he would be a couple of years ago with Chicago, and with the Bruins, that could be a very serious interest. Now, heading over to a guy like Joshua, who in this trade definitely is the B piece, I would say a 2A, 1B. He's definitely a player as well that a lot of Montreal fans are very interested about. And, I know a few personally, they're kind of interested in Joshua, especially looking at his AHL season, 35 points in 47 games, but all I've heard is that he's just not going to translate that well to the NHL. And at Joshua, 6 foot, 195, let's call him, definitely not a bad player at all either. 21 years old, still adding to this younger surge of players that the Bruins are looking for. Would not currently add to this offense right now, at least. And we're looking at this and looking at the way it would develop. Joshua right now would be, in my mind, very, very similar to a John Beecher. Of course, you have Fabian Lysell, you have many other players similar to a guy like Joshua here in this organization ready to come up. Now, Joshua, a guy who plays on the wing, but I believe can play a bit of center, correct me if I'm wrong there, but his production in the AHL, comparing that to the NHL, of course, it's very difficult to go ahead and say, but at 21 years old, once again, another very young player that would love to be able to crack into this roster, can get in there a little bit, I would say, above a guy like Fabian Lysell, above Mirakulov, a bit bigger. I think that's the Bruins are looking for. They don't want people to go ahead and get bullied, but the guy, like as I mentioned, Tanner Jeannot, changes the outlook of what types of players will be making this NHL roster, and the way they went here and added in free agency certainly looks like they're not expecting a lot of young talent to come into this team, but giving them a fight to get in here. So I'm very interested as well with Joshua, the 2026 second. We know that the picks they already have getting better and better, and going and adding those over the next few years certainly will give them more value, and getting rid of a guy like Pavel Zacha in a deal like this certainly piques my interest, at least, even though you are getting rid of someone who has been a very, very solid player for you over the past few seasons. Now, as well, going into it, of course, this is not really something that would matter at this point. The Bruins would, gain at least $555K in cap space going on from this Kirby Dach deal into, into the trade, what they would bring for each other. And, $500K, not a lot, but still adds up on that money that they need to get here over the next few seasons. And we know that they don't have a whole lot of money right now to be able to spend, especially with adding there in free agency. But when we do take a look at Pavel Zacha, of course, he still was a very important piece of this team. 47 points, 82 games, first line, second line minutes, wherever you need him. Only 28 years old as well. Certainly a guy that brings a lot of what the Bruins are looking for to this team, and would be a bit of a risk to give up here, but certainly would be one that you get some very interesting people in return. Now, we also have a few more teams that are interested in here. Going over some quotes from the BruinsInsider.com. First, starting off here, when looking at the Canucks roster, it isn't understandable that they would have an interest in Zacha. Suter recently left them through free agency to sign a 2-year deal with the St. Louis Blues. Furthermore, they also have another hole at center where, since they traded JT Miller to the New York Rangers, thus landing a player like Zacha could give their middle six a much-needed boost. Now, this article features two teams. We know the Canucks, definitely a team that's interested in just about anybody on the NHL trade market right now. They're in a situation where they need whatever they can get, and Pavel Zacha is a name that, if he's out there, the Canucks would certainly be interested in. However, there's another one that, to me at least, it seems like it could be a much better deal for the Bruins side of things. The Utah Mammoth could also use some help down the middle. Zacha would give them an upgrade at second-line center spot if acquired, which would certainly is certainly a need for them. In addition, the Mammoth have actively been improving their roster this summer, as they recently added J.J. Paterka and Nate Schmidt. Recently bringing in Zacha would only be another step in the right direction as they look to become a playoff team. Thus, it would be understandable if Utah made a push for Zacha. Now, the Utah Mammoth, to me at least, have a few more interesting pieces than what the Vancouver Canucks would provide from this team. We know the Canucks still do, although they do have some young prospect players, Thomas Wallander, Jacob Lekaromaki, one very interesting one, probably one of my favorite prospects here in the NHL at this point. They could get a serious deal here. However, it doesn't seem like the Canucks are moving on from this, so the Utah Mammoth, the Canucks deal could be an interesting one, but I want to know what you guys think about the Canadiens deal here. Let me know what you think about that. I'm very curious as well from the Bruins standpoint, from the Habs standpoint. So if you're a fan of either team watching this, let me know what you think. I'm genuinely very curious. I want to see, rivalry aside, how kind of each side is comparing this deal. So, that's all I got in this video, though. First, let me know what you think about these deals here. Do you want to move Zacha? I know that we've made a few videos on him recently. The reactions are pretty negative to wanting to trade him. But in a deal like this, with Kirby Dach, if he can stay healthy, Josh Watt in a second, they could be a good opportunity for the Bruins to be able to even flip the second, make Kirby Dach, if he can stay healthy, a second-line center, second-line winger, wherever you want him. And Josh Watt being a possibility to join the bottom four here, the bottom six here, on maybe even in the fourth line on this team. So let me know what you think. But that's all I have in this video. If you did enjoy, give it a like, hit the sub button as well. I'm signing up, though. Thanks for watching. Hope you have a great day. See you later.